wanted to talk about the Greater Bay Area where you live.
Yeah.
I was looking at a map of it yesterday, and you actually live right in the middle.
Literally,
Greater Bay Area.
Zhongshan means middle mountain, but that's not how it's got its name. It's the birthplace of Sun Zhongshan, and it is literally right in the center of the Greater Bay Area.
And this includes Macau, Hong Kong, Zhuhai, Shenzhen, and other places, including Foshan, Guangzhou even, actually. So it's a huge area.
It's much bigger than you think. Yeah, there's 110 million people living there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they're trying to do something called Jingjingi here, which is maybe going to take a longer amount of time. But, in your almost 20, is it 20 years? 20 years plus? 19 years.
I hit 19 years in about a month's time, so, and then I'll be in my 20th year. So
in terms of your experience of living there, what kind of changes have you seen in terms of growing this area together, linkages, physical connectivity, that kind of thing?
How long do we have, Jason? Because this is just too big a topic.
Just the highlights then.
Everything has changed.
Everything.
Absolutely everything. I remember in my first couple of months in the school having a chat with some of my students, and they said they're going to build a high-speed rail to Beijing. And I said, well, yeah, okay, that'll happen one day. And about a year and a half later, it happened. It's, I think, 2008 or 2010, it arrived. And we can now catch a train anywhere in China. So high-speed train anywhere in China. The other thing was, and I actually laughed out loud about this, they said they're building a bridge to Hong Kong. And I went back to the staff room at lunchtime, and I came back with a map to show them where Hong Kong was. I said, this is not going to happen. And now I've heard they're planning on building a bridge to Indonesia. So that's a future plan. I mean, it's not going to happen in the next few years, but there is going to be one day in the future a high-speed rail link probably to Australia. That was a plan that was mooted a few years ago. So when they start mooting these plans as ideas, they start to come to fruition.
Wow. So in terms of how is it meant interconnectivity, this physical structures, that the bridges and the high-speed rail in the Greater Bay Area, how has that meant people are able to move around? Are people from different regions working in other areas?
Oh, yeah. And people don't commute in the sense that we would do in the West. I used to live in Essex for a while, and you could commute in and out of London by train. That's not such a common thing. People tend to live in the city that they work. But you can get anywhere in the Greater Bay Area within an hour now. Anywhere at all. Right now, the distance between Zhongshan, so the furthest distance would be from Zhuhai to Shenzhen, and they're actually quite close. You can see Shenzhen from Zhuhai, but it's on the opposite side of the Pearl River Delta. And so right now it's quite awkward to get to, but in the next few months there is a bridge opening. The bridge is there, and it's almost complete. The whole thing is complete. They're finishing it off, and in the next few months, this year or early next year, they will open a link from Zhongshan to Shenzhen, and it's at the Zhuhai end of Zhongshan. So it's literally going to take 20 minutes to get from Zhuhai or Zhongshan into Shenzhen.
So there's a series of these bridges.
The whole GBA is interlinked with bridges. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And they're really all super mammoth kinds of bridges.
Yeah, like 70, 80 kilometers long.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. The one from Hong Kong, I think, is the longest in the world. The one from Shenzhen is going to be the longest of its kind. There is a tunnel, but it's not a bored tunnel. It's a tunnel that is a submerged tunnel. They've submerged it in links.
Is this the one that goes out into the water and then...
Yes, it goes into an artificial island and then underneath and then back up again. And there's two suspension bridges on either side. I mean, these are not just suspension bridges. When you think of a suspension bridge, you think of something like in the UK, the Humber Bridge. And I remember when that was opened, that was about 1970 something, and it was a huge, big thing. This is one of the longest bridges in Europe. And you think about that, and there's nothing like that in China. They're all 10 times as long.
Yeah.
They're really, really big bridges.
I'm from San Francisco, and there's the Golden Gate. I know when I first went to Wuhan a few years ago, I noticed that there's just 11 Golden Gate bridges, one after another, after another.
Wuhan is, and Chongqing as well, there's cities of bridges.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What is the significance of the Greater Bay Area project? What is it meant to increase? Is it about cyber activity? Is it about physical interconnectivity? What is going on there?
It's a bit of everything. It's certainly, if it was a country, it would qualify for the G7. It's that high. Just the GBA's, I think it's like $2 trillion US GDP. So it's up there with the UK's and the France's in terms of its GDP, just that area. But then it has 110 million people living in it. What's its purpose? The purpose is exactly that. It's interconnectivity with the world, but it's also it's a very lesser known fact that there are three areas which are called deep cooperation zones. In Zhuhai, linking to Macau, we have Hengqin. In Shenzhen, linking to Hong Kong, we have Shanghai. And then in Nansha, there's another area. Nansha is literally, if you take a look at the river, the Pearl River, right at the top, that's Nansha, where Guangdong basically meets the sea. And they've built a deep cooperation zone there. So now there are people moving out of Macau, out of Hong Kong, and into those areas, and they have a kind of a mutually acceptable legal system, financial system, property system. So effectively, somebody who moves from Hong Kong to live inside of Guangzhou in Nansha is effectively a Hong Kong resident in China. The financial system means that they can operate through one financial system instead of going through and doing currency exchanges. The whole thing is interlinking. People think, in the West, people think China is taking over Hong Kong. It's the opposite. Hong Kong is taking over parts of China. And Macau is doing the same. Macau is now, I think, 12 times bigger than it used to be because Hengqin is on the mainland and it is massive. I think it's either 8 or 12 times, I'm not exactly sure. But it's much, much bigger than Macau. And it's opening Macau up to a diversification, whereas it used to be just tourism and gambling. It's now pharmaceuticals, massive pharmaceutical industries down there, and traditional Chinese medicine too. So there's a lot of things going on in the Greater Bay Area that are connecting the two SARs, the Special Administrative Regions, into, and it's almost impossible now to tear them apart. You can't. They're just so interlinked now.